Welcome to Morbid Matters, where we discuss all manner of true crime and true horror content from history to today. So, this case that we're about to get into is probably the strangest that I've ever heard of. I have my own theories that we'll get into at the end, but let's go. It was November 10th, 2010 in Apple Valley, Ohio. Valerie Haythorne was the general manager at the local Dairy Queen when one of her best employees and managers, Tina Herrmann, had not shown up for her shift. She wasn't answering calls or texts, and this was very concerning for Valerie because of how out of character this was for Tina. So Valerie first decides to drive to Tina's house, where she sees Tina's truck in the driveway with another car that she didn't recognize. It was a Jeep. The lights were on in the house. Valerie knocks on the door and no one answers. She leaves a note, but she has this gut feeling that she just couldn't shake. So she decides to call the police. Valerie basically asked the police to do a welfare check because she knew that Tina was in the middle of splitting up with her boyfriend. It was kind of a messy breakup and she was a bit concerned for Tina's safety. 2 police officers do go up to Tina's house and they knock on the door, no one answers, and they pretty much just leave and do nothing more. Now, on top of Tina being missing, she also had 2 children from a previous relationship who primarily lived with her. There was 13-year-old Sarah Maynard and 10-year-old Kody Maynard. Around the time that all of this was going on, with police looking into the disappearance of Tina and her children, another man would end up reporting his girlfriend, Stephanie Sprang, is missing. Stephanie was Tina's best friend, and she was also not answering calls, not answering text. No one had heard from her. Tina and Stephanie had last been seen together on November 10th, which was also the last day that the children had been seen. By the afternoon of the 11th, Valerie, Tina's boss, is getting more and more concerned about Tina and her children. She just had that gut feeling that something was not right. So she ends up going to Tina's house by herself. This time, Tina's truck was gone and only the other car that she didn't recognize from before, the Jeep, was left in the driveway. And the police were able to figure out pretty quickly that this Jeep was actually Stephanie's. So Valerie goes up, and yet again she knocks on the door. There's no answer. This time she is determined to get in the house and figure out what the hell is going on. So she finds a window unlocked, and she manages to get her way inside. Since clearly the police weren't really doing shit at this point, and Valerie knows something is up. When Valerie gets inside, she sees that there's blood all over the house. Like, a lot of blood. It's in the bathroom, it's on the carpet, and she immediately just gets the fuck out of the house and calls the police. So now that there's a crime scene, the police start taking this more seriously to the fact that there is 4 people missing. Tina, Stephanie, plus Tina's 2 children, Sarah and Kody, as well as the family dog, Tanner, are all unaccounted for. When police made it into the home to investigate, they concluded that some kind of assault, which included great bodily harm, had taken place in the home. And it looked like someone had been drugged into the bathroom at some point from all of the blood marks leading in there, plus there was blood on the basement stairs and in the basement itself, but there were no bodies, no body parts, nothing, just a lot of blood. Now, naturally, the first suspect in this case was Tina's boyfriend, who she was in the middle of this breakup with. His name was Gregory Borders. They had been living together for a while. He was not the father of Sarah and Kody, but he willingly came to the police station to do an interview, and he was ruled out pretty quickly. Gregory had a pretty solid alibi to his whereabouts. He had been working overtime that day, and he ended up staying at a friend's house that night that everyone ended up going missing. And all of this could be verified and accounted for, so they didn't really have anything on Gregory. On November 11th, investigators would find Tina's truck abandoned in the parking lot of a local college, but there wasn't really anything in there. There was no evidence to speak of. But the smoking gun in this case would be found back at Tina's house. In the basement of the home, investigators found Walmart bags with heavy-duty tarps and trash bags. And along with these bags was a Walmart receipt. So they start going over surveillance footage for anyone who had purchased these items, and they found him. A younger white male wearing a camo shirt and glasses caught on camera in the Walmart parking lot leaving in a Toyota Yaris. They were able to get the name of a suspect by cross-referencing information about the vehicle, and this led police to a man named Matthew Hoffman. Matthew had a domestic violence charge from his girlfriend from only a month prior when she reported him for choking her during an argument. He had also recently been fired from his job trimming trees because he made his supervisor really uncomfortable. Matthew had even been stopped by an officer near Tina's home around the time of the disappearances, but this officer didn't really do anything. He just kind of let Matthew go because he didn't think anything suspicious was going on. But as we can all tell, Matthew is now looking highly suspicious. So police get a search warrant, and a SWAT team would descend upon Matthew's home. And the SWAT team went all out, ramming the door in. They threw in flash grenades, like the whole 9 yards. They were ready to get this guy. When they get inside, Matthew is asleep on the couch. He's immediately arrested and taken outside so police can begin to search for the missing people. So here's what police noticed was weird as fuck about Matthew's house. There's leaves everywhere. Not like he had just tracked in leaves from outside on his shoes and never cleaned them up, but he had intentionally and systematically gathered piles upon piles and bags of leaves from outside and poured them all around his home. There was a massive pile of leaves in the living room, like what you'd see outside in the fall from people raking up leaves in their yard. And there was nothing hiding in this pile of leaves, it was just more leaves. They also found dead squirrels just lying in a freezer right next to actual food. He also had piles of bagged leaves lining his bathroom walls in these neat stacks, almost like they were bricks or insulation. When police went to look in the basement of the home, they found Sarah. She was alive, lying on a sleeping bag, on top of a pile of leaves, and there were more and more bags and piles of leaves scattered across the basement. Sarah had been bound with rope and duct tape, and for some reason forced to wear a diaper made out of a trash bag, but she was otherwise physically unharmed. When police got to Sarah, she was confused, she was worried about being late for school, and she kept asking about her dog Tanner. Which I think it's safe to say that she is in shock, but Sarah is now the only one of the 4 missing people to have been found. First, Sarah was admitted to the hospital, and then she's questioned by police. So she tells them everything that she knows. She said that she and her brother Kody got home from school on the 10th. As soon as they both get inside the house, they were attacked by Matthew. Sarah says she tried to run to her room, but Matthew grabbed her and took her into the basement. He tied her up with some rope that he found, then he takes her back to the kitchen and just leaves her there for a while. Then he puts her in Stephanie's Jeep, drives her to a local ball field parking lot, covers her up with blankets, and leaves her for a while again. He comes back in another car and takes her to his house. He binds her up again, gags her, and leaves her in the bathroom for a while before eventually moving her to the basement. And Matthew told Sarah that he would release her before Christmas. While Sarah was held captive by Matthew for those 4 days, she had been sexually assaulted multiple times, and he cut her finger with a knife, which there was physical evidence to back all of this up. Sarah told police that she thought Matthew did kill her mother, her brother, Stephanie, and their dog, but he never actually told her if he did it, and she never saw any evidence that he did it. It's believed that Sarah never actually got a chance to see the rest of the house where there was blood everywhere. When Matthew was arrested, he freaked out and threatened to unalive himself, so it was hard to question him at first because when he actually got into the interrogation room, he wouldn't speak. He was totally unresponsive for several hours. Finally, they get him to talk. And at first, he sort of just breaks down about his mental health issues, but he claims that he doesn't know what he did. He sort of said that he had a dream that he was pulling body parts out of a bag, but he doesn't remember actually doing anything. Now, the amount of leaves and weird shit in Matthew's house does make it seem like he's mentally unwell, because sane people don't typically hoard leaves. But Matthew had not been diagnosed with any serious mental illnesses, although he was seemingly trying to act crazy during the interrogation. Now, it did take a lot of work from police, but Matthew finally broke down and confessed, somewhat. On the night of November 9th, 2010, Matthew says that he camped out in the woods near Tina's home, and his plan had been to enter the home the next day on the 10th to rob the place. He did not plan on having any contact with the family. He chose Tina's house because of the rural location and lack of security. But Tina and Stephanie would get back to the house while Matthew was in the middle of his burglarizing spree, and they caught him red-handed. Matthew claims that in a panic, he killed them and killed the family dog because it wouldn't stop barking. Matthew decided that he would start cutting up the bodies of Tina, Stephanie, and Tanner the dog in the bathtub, put them into trash bags to dispose of them later. But while he was in the middle of doing this, Sarah and Kody got home from school. Matthew ambushed both of them, he tied Sarah up, and killed Kody. After the murders, Matthew drove around collecting gas cans, which he intended to use to burn down Tina's house. But while driving back to Tina's house, Matthew got pulled over, and even though the cop let him go, this would make him really nervous, so he ditched the plan to burn down Tina's house. Then he claims to have spent the next few days with Sarah. He says that he treated her really well, he cooked her hamburgers, he let her play video games, watch movies, he slept with his arm around her to comfort her, and he only sexually assaulted her once. Matthew would finally divulge the location of the 4 missing bodies on November 18th. He had hidden them in a tree in the Kokosing wildlife area. There was this tree that had some hollowed out holes, and inside were trash bags filled with the dismembered body parts of Tina, Stephanie, Kody, and Tanner the dog. Some people think that maybe Matthew had actually hollowed out the holes in the tree himself while he was working as a tree trimmer, and that's why he knew about it. On January 6, 2011, Matthew pled guilty to 10 felonies, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, I'm curious what you guys think of this case, particularly this leaf and tree obsession, which psychologists did say was delusional, but he wasn't really diagnosed with anything that I could find. So I'm curious what you guys might think that this leaf thing means. Is it some form of mental illness? Is it a coping mechanism? What exactly is that all about? Now, Matthew claims that he never intended to kill anyone, although he did go to the home with a knife. Now, I personally don't believe that this was a burglary gone horribly wrong. I believe that he wanted Sarah. I think that because of what he did to her and keeping just her alive, she seemed to be his goal. Maybe he was hoping that she would be getting home that day alone and her mom and Stephanie wouldn't be there, or Kody wouldn't be getting home from school with her. But with all the things that he ended up doing to Sarah, I feel like he came there with the intention of getting her no matter what. For whatever reason, I believe that maybe she was his obsession, and that's just what he wanted out of this whole endeavor, and everyone else that got in the way was just collateral damage.
You know, he had said during the confession, he said that this was a burglary gone bad. He didn't intend to kill anybody. Do you believe that?
No, I don't. You know, a thief steals and a murderer kills. You know, if he was there to burglarize the home, why did he stake it out the way he did? You know, why did he purchase a knife online a week prior to make an entrance into this home?
You know, we have seen pictures of his home. They've been released, Sarah, and they're just disturbing images of doodles on the wall and those bags and bags of leaves. Even the bed that he had you on supposedly was made out of leaves.
Yeah.
Did he say anything about why that house was filled with leaves to you?
He told me that someone helped him bag the leaves, and so that's why he said he wanted to make my bed comfy, so he just put leaves there so I could sleep on.
You know, the sheriff has since said that Sarah is the epitome of bravery. How would you describe her, Larry?
Definitely. You know, she's even an inspiration to me. You know, me as her father, you know, I'm supposed to be the teacher, you know, of your children. But I think she's taught me far more than I could probably ever teach her about life.
You know, during the sentencing, you wanted to confront your kidnapper, Hoffman. You had a statement written that was read out loud, not by you, but by others. What did you want to say to him, and why was it important for you to face him?
I wanted to tell him that I wasn't scared of him. I just wanted to live my life.
What keeps you strong, Sarah? And so positive?
Just making my life go on and not thinking about what's happened in the past.
Although I'm curious if you guys have any other opinions on what may have been his motive, or was he really telling the truth? Was this really just a burglary gone horribly wrong and he really didn't mean to kill anybody? I mean, I can see a burglary going wrong and maybe shooting somebody, but immediately going to dismemberment, kidnapping the daughter, assaulting her, it doesn't add up. Also, please let me know if you're interested in any darker, unedited crime stories, because I have launched a Patreon and I will be adding more gruesome stories to that I can't really post on public platforms because of the nature of the crime. Also, any requested videos will be going to that platform, as in the Singapore caning that people keep asking for. I cannot do that on YouTube because of the terms of service. I can't do any reaction videos, and it's just a case that I don't really want to keep putting on this platform. I feel like maybe I awoke a certain community with that, so it's going to Patreon. If you want me to do those videos, that's where they'll be. But as always, stay safe out there, and good night.